Good morning and welcome to One Yard Wednesday. I'm Colleen from GE Designs. Along with me is Mr. GP, and I'm happy to have him here to keep us in order technically. Today is going to be an unusual day because we're going to show you a stash builder bundle as a part of our products that are available today. So we have a lot of fun ideas on how to use this stash builder bundle. We have some great patterns. And I just can't wait to show you. Before we get started, I just want to remind you that the prices for these fabrics today will go live after the show. So sit back, relax, watch the show, maybe pick up some new tips, and know that the prices will be waiting for you when we're finished. Let's start today with looking at these fabrics, and then we'll talk about a lot of ideas for using them. All right? These are called Florida Volume 2. The first fabric in our collection is this one. It's called Florida Volume 2 Multi. This is the one fabric that we're showing you today that is available in a 1 yard length. So this fabric is $7.99 a yard, and it's available in 1 yard lengths. It is a really fun, big and bold print, and wait till you see some fun ideas for using this print. Then we have the Florida Stash Builder Bundle. Let's look at those. It's 8 different half yards, all complementing, of course, this Florida Volume 2 line. You'll see waves, you'll see fruits, you'll see sand dollars, and I think Sarah Watts did a fun job coming up with this fun collection. It is from Ruby Star, so it has a nice soft hand, and I know you'll love working with it. Here's the second fabric from that line. I love this lavender background, and you can see how it shows up in the multi print. And I'm not sure, but I'm going to go with these big orange dots being oranges since they're coming from Florida. The next print is this fun dot, so it's this real pretty royal blue with a little bitty lavender dot. Really a fun color, and the scale and the print kind of calms down some of the busyness of these other fabrics. And then the next one looks like the bottom of the sea to me, where it's really dark. And I do love the value change here. So this is the dark background, kind of a charcoal gray, and then the coral, and then the different fish. Again, I just think it's a lot of fun. And where you see SeaWorld, you're going to see, I think these actually are, I'm going to go with this. I think these are seagulls. Maybe they're not, but they're kind of cartoonish. The white bird with the black legs and beak, and then that same lavender that you see in the other print, and then those lavender dots as well. Then we have some sand dollars. Aren't these pretty? Same background as the birds, and that big pretty sand dollar dot. I think I'm going to run out of space. I'm going to move these just a little bit. This is so pretty. They're kind of a seafoam green with the dolphins. They just look so happy. And of course, they look like the dolphins that are in the multi-print as well. And finally, in this Stash Builder bundle is another print in that sea green color and the same coral print as we saw in this dark print. And with those bright orange fish, really rounds out this collection. So it gives us the seafoam green, the lavender, and then some dark tones as well to round out, like I said, this collection with this multi-print. So those were the fabrics we wanted to show you today. We'll show you again because they're worth seeing twice. The next part of the show, though, we want to be sure you have some great ideas on how to use these fabrics. They're kind of an unusual combination, but really, really fun when you find just the right pattern. So we have 2 quilt patterns to think about today. The first quilt I want to show you is Jojo. I love this quilt. I do actually love a Halloween print, so I did pick these on purpose. But it's a great look, though, at what a quilt looks like when you've just got a lot of really busy prints in fun colors. This is a great, and you might say a busy quilt, but I just love it. One of the things that helps hold these blocks together are these little squares here, which are all the same fabric in a contrast to the dark. These are light, and they have just a little bit of texture that makes them look like spider webs. Great use of fabrics here. Over my other shoulder is Inga, and Inga also lends itself to using a lot of different prints. So Gudrun grabbed this yellow to pull it together and give your eye someplace to rest, but these prints are all very busy and different shapes and different values, and again make that Inga quilt really come to life. I also made a bag using these prints that I'd like to show you and give you some tips for doing the Quilt As You Go process that I use for the bag. Here is the bag, and I really love it, and I enjoyed making it and would definitely make this bag again. I used the pattern Strip to the Beach, and you'll notice that I used this particular version of the pattern, and it's the smaller version. This pattern has a bag that is 16 by 16 by 8, so pretty big. And then the one that's called small is 12 by 13 by 6, and I really love both of them. Really easy to do. Here's my Strip to the Beach bag. It's a Quilt As You Go project, and I love how it turned out. Let me give you some tips on how to do that Quilt As You Go. Let's look at how to make this Strip to the Beach bag. Now, I made this smaller than the actual pattern because I wanted it to fit in our frame and give you a close-up idea of how to do this. If you have already done Quilt As You Go, great, keep going. If you haven't done it and you want to give it a try, or you just want a few tips, I've got some for you. My first tip comes right from Gudrun and right from the manufacturer's tips. It is use your walking foot. Now, Baby Lock refers to this as an even feed foot. Almost all sewing machines come with a walking foot. If yours didn't, check with your sewing machine dealership and they may be able to special order one for you. What this allows is for the feed dogs to pull your project under the project, and this little belt to pull your project along on top. So your fabric is going to go through just like this. And that's important because it's holding that entire sandwich together, so it will feed evenly and nice every time. The next tip I have is to use our Quilt As You Go batting. This batting is a low loft, it's easy to stitch, just perfect for a bag or a runner, fusible on one side, and that also helps keep your sandwich together, so when you're doing this quilting, your backing is fused to the fusible side of your batting. The next tip I have has to do with your thread and your stitch length. I use a little bit longer stitch length. So if I use a 2.5 for piecing, I'm going to use a 3.0 for this quilting. And the quilting can be done in 2-inch increments or 1.5-inch increments. It could be very random. I could have done it looking like waves, and I might try that next time. This is really a personal design choice. You want to also take into consideration that your bobbin thread will show on the backing of your project. So it's always worth doing something a little lighter, a little darker, a little duller for your bobbin thread. Now, if I were going to do this again, I might go something a little bit darker, but the backing fabric here really helps to disguise that quilting, and that's also a good piece of advice. Another tip related to your fabric is pay good attention to your fabric. because if your project, like my bag, has a bottom and a top, I need to be sure that my fabric, which is directional, is facing in the right direction. So you can see that I was sure that the top of my bag would have the top of the print. How I did that is I cut the fabric to the dimensions in the pattern, adding 1/2 of an inch. And then I cut that in the center and put a seam in the bottom. So that extra 1/2 inch is accounted for in this bottom seam of my piece. And this is just so much fun. You could even do some shadow quilting here. That would be a lot of fun. Now I'm going to go back to my sewing machine and play with that a little bit. Some other fun tools for this are your a water-soluble marker. The water-soluble marker allows you to draw the lines you need and then spritz them with water and they'll disappear. Really a great tool, and that's helpful when you're marking your quilting line. Another great marker is the Choco Liner. I like this one a lot as well. And then with this Choco Liner, I'm going to brush away the chalk. I have a little paintbrush that I use to brush that away when I'm finished. And then I know I'll get really nice, crisp lines to use for stitching. The other tool that's helpful is a longer pin, because you're going to be going through a lot of layers. And then if you have a finger pressing tool, that can be helpful too. Or you can just simply do that finger pressing. So this is my bag so far. My next step would be to add the handles. I don't have the handles handy. I think the instructions are very good, but I'd like to show you the next steps for adding your strips. Now, all of the prints that I've chosen for my bag are directional. So I always start by laying this in the place where I'm going to stitch it and be sure that the coral and the fish are right side up. Then I pull this back and then I pin that, stitch it, and I pull it up and finger press it. I typically don't take this to the sewing machine until I'm completely finished. The next fabric I'm adding to my design is the dolphin print. And again, I want to dry fit this. I want to lay it in place to be sure that the dolphins are right side up. It might not matter to your design, but for me, I really wanted all of these to be right side up. So lay this down, stitch this, open it up, and give it a finger press. Now, again, I did this simply for a demonstration, and I didn't measure this well enough to be sure that all of my strips would fit. So let me show you what I would do if I were really making this project. I could fit one more strip in here if I simply moved these strips down. So I would measure these so that I know exactly where these are going to go, so I place them the same way in the other end. So I could lay this down and just take a bigger seam allowance on this multi, or the bottom of the bag, and then I can add my other strips and they're going to fit just fine. Okay, I just think that's pretty. I like how this looks. So 1/4 inch seam at best of my ability, and press these up, and then I'll trim these and square the whole bag up, and before I sew the sides together. I have 2 final tips on how to finish this bag. First of all, I used the same binding as this top strip. The bag is very busy. It has a lot of color, and I didn't, from a design point of view, didn't want to add one more element. So I used the same binding as I did on the top strip. And again, that's personal preference. I haven't yet sewn these down, and I do need to do that. But finally, I love how this bag is finished. The inside seam of the bag and the outside seam of the bag are all finished and no raggedy edges, as you can see looking inside. That's because this bag is finished using a French seam. A French seam means that you sew your bag wrong sides together first, then you turn your bag, and then you make another seam right sides together. That's a really nice and clean looking seam that's done on the sides as well as on the boxed bottom of the bag. So you have no, like I said, no raw edges, and it's all very clean and neat and pretty. So there is my Strip to the Beach bag. Let's take one more look at the Florida Volume 2 Stash Builder Bundle and the 1 yard lengths that are available as well. This is such a fun bundle. You know, I have kids in Florida and I feel like I just have to make something for them out of this bundle. It's the first two are these fun kind of sea foam green with the dolphins and the fish. Very, very pretty. The next two are these lavenders, this sand dollars as well as the birds. I love the different scales of size here. I love the dot background. Just give me a lot of interest. And then there's the coral that looks like the deep sea where there's less sun, but they're there. And then the dot, which gives me a nice kind of almost reads as a solid blender. That's also a great ad, and I use that for the lining for one of my bags. This fun lavender background, and I still think these are oranges. We're going to just pretend they are. So bright and vibrant and pretty. And then this print, which looks like the sea and the waves of the sea, and then the dark value really helps to anchor your color distribution too. And then finally, this print that is called Multi. So it's called Florida Volume 2 Multi. And this is the fabric that we have in 1 yard lengths. The rest of the fabrics are in that Florida Volume 2 Stash Builder Bundle. Here's a quick review of the tools and the patterns. The first tool is that water-soluble marker. I love these. I have a couple of them, and I actually use them a lot. Always read the instructions on these markers and try them on an inconspicuous part of your fabric to make sure they'll work perfectly for you and your project. The next one is the Choco Liner pen. I love that one too. I use that against my ruler, and then I brush the chalk off when I'm finished. And then the Strip to the Beach pattern. This is a Quilt As You Go pattern by GEDesigns, and it comes in two sizes, and as I mentioned, I made the smaller size, 12 by 13 by 6, which worked great for this project. The quilts we looked at come from Stripology Mixology 2 and Stripology Mixology 3. Stripology Mixology 2 has Jojo, and again, what a fun use of a lot of texture in these fabrics. I have to show you the next page though, because there's Gudrun and Jojo. I just couldn't resist showing you how cute he is and how little. So Jojo is a really fun print, really fun pattern. From Stripology Mixology 3, it's Inga, and Inga is able to hold all of those bright patterns together, lots of texture, and it looks super cool. There's one pattern that I pulled that I didn't get a chance to use. It's called Modern Charm Runner. This is another Quilt As You Go pattern, and you can see how these fun Florida fabrics would be great for the Modern Charm Runner. Finally, it's the GE Quilt As You Go batting. I'm using this almost every week. It's just the right texture, it's just the right loft, and it's 100% polyester, fusible on one side. So I always fuse my lining or my backing to the Quilt As You Go batting. Well, that was our 1 Yard Wednesday show. I hope you loved it. Grab some of these fun fabrics, grab a pattern, and make yourself something wonderful. I'm Colleen from GEDesigns. That's Mr. GP, and we're so excited to be with you every week. Thank you so much. See you next time.